For most people, the word pleasure evokes mixed feelings. On one hand, it immediately brings to mind something good. We feel good when we experience pleasant bodily sensations, when we taste delicious food or read an interesting book. Yet most people consider a life dedicated to pleasure as wasted. Why is that? Because the word pleasure is burdened with a lot of fears. We are afraid that pleasure will lead us astray, make us forget about important tasks and responsibilities, or even drown us in an abyss. Modern culture is more oriented towards the mind than the body. The main value here is money, while pleasure has been pushed to the sidelines. To possess has replaced to be. But the feeling of control is so ephemeral. Meanwhile, the fear and doubt that it will all end are always with us. And here's the paradox. Pleasure remains one of the main motivating forces in our lives. And we think, when we achieve some ambitious goal, pleasure will naturally envelop us. But until we achieve it, no pleasures. In this video, we will explore the phenomenon of pleasure, simple daily pleasure that will fuel and motivate you to move towards your goals. And for this, I have outlined 7 simple rules. Full commitment. Full commitment to any activity is the main condition for experiencing pleasure. Partial involvement leads to detachment from the activity and the emergence of tension. One Buddhist monk used to tell his students, "When you eat, just eat." Once during a meal, the students noticed that the monk was reading a newspaper and asked him, "What are you doing?" The monk replied, "When you eat and read a newspaper, just eat and read a newspaper." Children have the ability to fully immerse themselves in play. When a child says that the game was fun, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were laughing. They mean that thanks to the imagined situation, they were fully engaged with their whole heart and thus derived immense pleasure through self-expression. In play, children exhibit the creative impulse inherent in the human personality. The ease with which a child can imagine something indicates the richness of their inner world. Thanks to the relative freedom from obligations and pressure, imagination transforms the child's surroundings into a fairy tale, offering unlimited opportunities for pleasure. If you ask a child if they are happy, they probably won't know how to answer. I doubt they even understand the meaning of the word, but they will definitely tell you if they are having fun. We adults often long for that happy time. It seems carefree, free from the anxieties and problems that accompany maturity. But the past, like the future, is just a fantasy. Only the present is real. David Lynch, the director, a master of the unconscious who was on close terms with his shadow, can teach us a lot. For example, for him, life and work were the same thing. The film Lost Highway begins with the phrase, "Dick Laurent is dead." Once someone called David Lynch on the intercom and said this phrase. Lynch, with his imagination, was so intrigued that he simply inserted it into his film. He said, "You should work for the sake of the process itself, not just for the result. Of course, it's unclear how it will all turn out, but you are happy to be engaged in creativity. New ideas emerge, and you become more and more engrossed. You simply enjoy the process, and that's the whole point. If you don't like the process, do something else." Are there any completely happy people among us? I don't have an answer to that question. But one thing I am sure of, we all feel that our lives should be more than just a struggle for achievement. They should be filled with pleasure and joy. Stay in touch with your body. At the core of any experience of joy and happiness lies the bodily sensation of pleasure. For 2,000 years, Western culture has hidden the body in the shadows as if it were a shameful secret. Priests exalted the mind, spirit, and logic, placing a taboo on all things carnal, animal impulses, sexual passions, the ephemeral nature of the body. But that wasn't enough. With the advent of the scientific era, the body was pushed into a corner, reduced to a mechanism with a set of chemicals, devoid of soul and intrinsic value. The gap between the body and the mind widened. Culture celebrated results and achievements and ignored intuition and the body's natural wisdom. Thus, we found ourselves in a world of opposites. body versus spirit, sin versus innocence, animal versus spiritual, wasting time versus productive goal setting. As a result, the body became a source of shame for us. We lost the joy of free movement, became burdened with psychosomatic ailments, indifference, addictions, and obesity. And technology adds insult to injury. Electronic prosthetics, biochips, and other wonders tell us, guys, it's time to replace your bodies with machines. We risk entering a world where there is simply no place for the body, where it is displaced by cold, detached intellect. But this scenario is not the only one. Advocates of body therapy see the body not as a burden, but as a sacred temple of transformation. The body is simultaneously a school, a lesson, a hero, a precious enemy, and a springboard to higher realms. New movements based on Eastern traditions and entire generations of therapists are actively bringing the body back from exile. Through breathing, vibration, sounds, rhythms, and images, they open access to deep work with our shadow, freeing the body from the prison of the rational mind. Many consider the shadow elusive, hidden somewhere in the corners of the unconscious. It is there, but not only there. Those who have studied body language know that the shadow is imprinted in our muscles, tissues, and bones. Our personal history is etched in every movement, in every tension, ready to be read by those who know how to read it. Dancers, athletes, craftsmen, all those who are accustomed to trusting movement will not be surprised by the thought that the body holds the key to our awakening. And those who are more inclined to reflection and introspection, well, congratulations, you will discover a new tool for integrating the shadow. I know many people who enjoy their work, but you can only enjoy it when you easily, effortlessly, and fully expend all the energy required to perform it. Watching a good carpenter at work, you can notice the pleasure he derives from the coordinated movements of his body. From the outside, it seems as if he is not making any effort at all. His movements are so light and natural. Conversely, if his movements were clumsy, it would be hard to imagine that he enjoys his work. And it's not about being a top expert, it's about how engaged you are. Even simple actions like cooking or cleaning can bring pleasure. You just need to listen to your body and respond to its rhythms, from breathing to the tips of your fingers. Breathe as if you just quit your job. People seek therapy when life no longer brings them joy. Complaints can vary: depression, anxiety, self-sabotage, loss of meaning. However, fundamentally, it's all about the same thing: the inability to experience pleasure in life. Therefore, the problem cannot be solved solely through a mental approach. It must be addressed simultaneously on two levels: psychological and physical. Being disconnected from their body, a person stops thinking about its functioning and may neglect its very foundation. After all, to live, a person must breathe, and the better a person breathes, the more life there is in them. They may occasionally notice the limitations of their breathing and sometimes, especially under stress, feel that they are holding their breath, but they don't attach much importance to it. As they grow older, they make a sad discovery. It turns out that breathing, like all bodily functions, deteriorates over time. Once breathing becomes difficult, a person is willing to give anything to breathe with the same ease as before. Now they know that breathing is a matter of life and death. Pay attention to how you are breathing right now, and you will notice how often and strongly you hold your breath. A person with inadequate breathing is cold, dull, and lifeless. Healthy breathing is characterized by qualities such as unity and integrity. The inhalation begins with the movement of the abdomen forward. At this time, the diaphragm contracts and the abdominal muscles relax. The wave of expansion spreads upward, encompassing the chest. Deepening the breath causes vibrations in the body. They start in the legs and become strong enough to spread throughout the body. A healthy personality is a vibrating personality, as strange as that may sound. A healthy body pulsates. Some people are said to need a good shake-up. This is exactly what the body tries to do through involuntary vibrations, to shake the person, freeing them from rigidity. Develop spontaneity. You have probably noticed in others or in yourself that when a person's muscles, for example, in the jaw, arms, or shoulders are tense, movement becomes angular and awkward like in a cartoon. The person tries to do something, but it all looks very clumsy. And clumsy movements evoke equally clumsy responses from others. And then we feel rejected. Confidence, meanwhile, is the ability to express oneself freely, anywhere, and in any way. Although it sounds paradoxical, spontaneity and self-control are not enemies, but allies. True self-control is not about robotic mechanicity, but about the freedom of choice when the body is not bound by constant tension. This distinguishes a calm, collected person from a nervous and compulsive one. Grace is freedom from chronic tension. Such people move easily, as if dancing. Their body works harmoniously and efficiently. But a shy person often has a different story. Instead of feeling their body, they seem to look at it from the outside, losing contact with themselves. The result is alienation, stiffness, and insecurity. Many people don't even notice whether their back is relaxed or if their feet are firmly on the ground. And if you don't feel your feet, your foundation, then you are not grounded and are standing as if in a swamp. Postures can also deceive. A puffed-out chest may seem masculine to you, but to others, it's a caricature. Living in the body means feeling it, not performing for an audience. Practices like dynamic meditation can help reveal this. Here's a practice for you. Try doing something simple as if you were an alien from the planet Capex. That is, for the first time in your life, you are peeling a tangerine. Do it in a new, different, unusual way. You can even try eating it with the peel. And as you eat this amazing earthly fruit for the first time, think about where it came from, how the sun's rays nourished it, how the rains washed it, and how the wind rustled its leaves, how someone's caring hands picked it, how it traveled a long way from some mysterious southern country, and what an exciting journey it took to get to your table. And you enjoy it. Fixation on success disconnects from pleasure. In the mass consciousness, success is what sets a person apart from the crowd. People say about a successful person they did it and now they can finally relax and enjoy life, and the rest of the masses continue to chase success. You may have heard of something called the deferred life syndrome. It is a sacrificial refusal of all pleasures and entertainments for the sake of some grand goal that is supposed to change your life for the better, but only sometime in the future. People feel that they are not living their real life now, but only preparing for it. Real life will begin sometime later when they buy an apartment, start a family, or move to a new country. Intellectually, we understand that success does not have magical properties. Emotionally, however, we all strive for success in various spheres: financial, political, athletic. This is quite understandable because success and failure-oriented thinking is typical of our goal-oriented culture. As soon as you enter school, your life is measured by successes and failures. To move from one grade to the next, you need to earn your place, achieve sequential goals, and later this becomes the model for our entire adult life. And I'm not saying that we don't need success, don't get me wrong. No, it's great to set goals and achieve them, but the main problem is considering success itself as the primary goal. For example, if I plan to write a book, my goal is to publish it. Achieving this goal, I can say that I have succeeded, but in the public consciousness, this is not success. If my book becomes a bestseller, then success is truly achieved. Once I consulted a musician whom critics and the public consider a model of originality and authorial style. He came to me with a request. He didn't know who he was inside. Confusion, uncertainty, loss of connection with himself. He lived only in his imagination, having long lost touch with his body. And despite the fact that his creativity fed him, gave him recognition and satisfied him, his life was devoid of pleasure. And how many examples do we know of talented, rich, and famous people who suddenly, at the peak of their careers, take their own lives? On the other hand, you have probably met people who are neither business gurus nor spiritual preachers, but still there is something special about them. They don't impress with loud speeches or heroic deeds, but when you enter their field, you feel something special. as if they are vibrating, their bodies are giving off some rhythmic wave into space, and you unconsciously feel it, as if you are standing next to a speaker playing your favorite track. Sexuality and spirituality are the same thing. I hope you understand that by sexuality, we don't just mean butts and boobs, although that too, but not only that. Have you noticed? You are talking to some girl or guy, if you are a girl, and everything seems fine with their appearance. They have a figure. But as soon as some interaction begins, you immediately think, something is wrong, somehow I don't feel like it. Why is that? Well, there is no vibration, no soul of sex. The body is ready, but the clamps remain. To understand this idea, let's turn to Thomas More's book, The Soul of Sex, in which he considers sexuality not only from a biological perspective, but also from the perspective of spiritual experience. Thomas More writes that the historical separation of spirit and body, sacred and passionate, is a neurosis. It is an unnecessary position that affects all areas of life, from emotional stability to bridge construction. In ancient Hebrew, there was no separate word for the body. A person was a living being, a body spirit. Thus, to touch a person physically meant to touch them spiritually. Today, almost no one experiences such reverence for a person. When we say, have sex with someone, it only brings emptiness. We worship the idol of sex itself, detached from the sacred nature that consists of connecting people with the very foundation of their being. If I, as a person, do not engage in sexual intercourse with full presence, then I do not accept you as full presence either. And therefore, we have not even met. It is in such encounters that we can know and love God, who is love. This love has nothing to do with possession or obsession. It is love about freedom, about spirit, about giving, not about owning. And if God is love, then who is the main representative of the lover archetype for us? That's right, Jesus. This topic is quite hot, and I don't want to delve into it here because someone might get offended. The fear of pleasure is the fear of pain. Many people have forbidden themselves from experiencing pleasure because they are afraid of pain, and not just physical pain, which arises in a tense body, but also psychological pain, due to various frustrations, losses, and so on. As we grow older, we find ways to cope with pain by suppressing our grief, fear, and anger. In doing so, we reduce our ability to love, rejoice, and experience pleasure. By closing ourselves off from pain, we also close ourselves off from pleasure. You cannot restore the ability to rejoice without reliving your sorrow. You cannot feel pleasure without going through the pain of rebirth. And we are reborn when we gather courage and bravely face all the pains of our lives without resorting to illusions. At the end, let's do a small mental exercise. Imagine a person who, in your opinion, enjoys life. It could be a movie character or a real acquaintance. Describe them in great detail, how they move, how they speak, what they think about, how they dress, what they do, and so on. Write about them in the comments. It will be very interesting to see how you imagine a person who enjoys life. Try to live one day as this person and observe your feelings. Friends, thank you for being with me throughout this video. If you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it, don't forget to like it. You've probably heard the phrase, where attention goes, energy flows. Let's direct our attention to pleasure.